friends. I have my friend Laura Evers here today, and I am excited to have her tell you a little bit more about her journey and how she's gotten to this point and what she's up to now. So, Laura, I'll go ahead and let you take it from here and share a little bit more about that.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Laura Evers. And probably the most important thing that I could say anybody should know about me is I'm a social worker. I worked in formal social work since 2007. And I worked in prior to 2007, which was a very long time ago for anyone wondering. Prior to 2007, I worked in related or similar um, helping fields through faith-based organizations. But since 2007, I've worked formally as a social worker for government and healthcare. Um, and in these almost 20 years, I've spent time working with elderly independent adults, um, children and families. I've done fraud investigation. I've done abuse investigation. I worked in substance abuse and domestic violence, prison. I've been a boss, a social worker for social workers. I've done therapy. I've worked in policy development and implementation. I've worked in building community partnerships and stakeholder recruitment. And the primary through line through every role I have ever filled is safety, building safety, establishing safety, finding safety, identifying safety. Safety is a social worker's whole job, and it is the number one driver of my work as social work. And the question that I come to every conversation is, are you safe? Are my recipients safe? And if no, how can we achieve safety? If yes, how can we maintain safety? So that's why I am where I am and what I do. I have a master's degree in social work that I finished back in 2005. I'm a licensed master social worker here in the state of Texas. That's hello. I'm Laura, and that's me, the social
I,
worker.
I love it. I love it. Um, no, I mean, there's so many incredible things. You've done so much with different policies, different industries and areas of emphasis. And so I read something the other day, one of my former bosses posted on LinkedIn about how business generalists are like the Swiss Army knives of business, right?
Yeah.
Like you can give them just about anything and they can get it done. So it sounds a little bit like you're a Swiss Army knife of safety and procedures and understanding, like no matter what realm of industry this falls into, you've probably done it and know how it applies to a business, right?
Yeah, I think that's kind of a really misunderstood aspect of social work is that it is broadly applicable across every field of the human experience. It's not simply, you know, child abuse. It's not just in a hospital. That there is at some point in time, every single person is going to need a social worker at some point in time in their life, um, and that role is it's so broadly applicable, not often applied in the world of business because it is so misunderstood, and often funneled into treatment and clinical settings. But social workers are systems minded, trained as system interventionists, um, and so that application is a really useful tool for a business of any size to be able to access and use that assessment, the assessment training that a social worker can bring to the table.
I love that. Let's talk about why systems matter. And specifically, I know for you, you've kind of mentioned like policies and procedures are like a big part of what's missing in companies, but let's talk about why that's so important. Like, why do policies matter? Why should we be proactive in presenting those?
Yeah. So, probably my favorite part of all of my work in social work has been in crafting policy, interpreting policy, and training on policy. I think policy is so overlooked because it feels restrictive. It feels redundant, and it also feels really intimidating because you could get it wrong so easily, or if you just do it right, you don't need rules to get get you through your life, right? But I think if we start from a perspective of let's define it, what is policy? Policy in real simple, stripped down language is just the written version of how are we going to behave. It's really that simple. And then what are we going to do when we don't behave that way? And it's not more than that, and it's not less than that. It is simply the outlining of your expectations for yourself and for the people that you serve and that work for you. And without a policy, without an outline of expectation, how can you expect people to perform at or to or above your standard? If there's no job description easily accessible, how can you expect your employees to know what they're supposed to do? If there's no explanation of conduct, how can you expect the people to know how to function? If there's no definition of roles and tasks and goals, then there cannot be a right or a wrong, which means that your work really isn't getting done. Your mission is not really being seen to. You're going to experience conflict and confusion and disorientation. You will experience loss of good workers, loss of poor workers. You'll never have the opportunity to develop anyone into the thriving team that you want to have. And a good policy, a good outline of an expectation is kind of like the skeleton that you hang the rest of your design on. It is the framework that we function to. I heard someone use the illustration that it's, if you hand someone a blank page of white paper and say, draw me a picture, you will have some individuals provide you, a little picture down in the little corner. You'll have someone fill the whole page, and then you'll have someone not do anything at all because a giant white page staring you in the face is like really intimidating, and you have nothing. Like, what am I supposed to do here? But if you provide even just a box inside that page, that box will get used. If you put a picture and say, fill in this picture, color in this picture, design this picture, then it will get covered line to line, edge to edge, because a framework has been established. And the individuals that you hand this task to will pick it up and carry it to an actual final place. And that is the role of policy, is we're going to do this, and this is how it's going to work, and this is why we're going to do it, and this is when we're going to stop, and this is how you'll know you've reached the goal, and that is safety. If you can create a foundation and a guideline and goals, and really well communicate those, which good policy does, then you've achieved safety for yourself as an individual, for your workers as employees, and for your business as a whole. And that's why in today's world in particular, I think setting a goal of safety first is never going to be wrong. And what it, and I that's what I do. I help with that. So
I
that's
love that.
policy, and that's why it's important.
Yeah. Clarity is kindness, right? Like,
Yeah,
living
that's a
in
good
an
one.
environment where there is clarity, there's a framework, as you were mentioning, like,
Mhm.
here's your parameters. Now, as I delegate things, now you know the parameters you have. Go color it. Go make it something unique and better than I can give you because I'm trusting you to take it to the
Yeah,
next level, to
yeah.
pour yourself into it, to infuse what you're gifted to do.
Mhm.
But here's a framework so that we can align expectations and the risk is safe, as you were mentioning. It's like
Yeah,
go take the risk, but there's
yeah,
safety in the guardrails of
yeah,
what that framework looks like.
yeah, yeah. Um, and I think that as good leaders, I think that as it's not, it is not ethical to expect your staff and your partners, whether that staff and partners are relatives or friends. In the small business world, that's who we staff with is our cousins and our sisters and our kids, and our neighbors and the person that we share, um, a row with at church, where our ideas happen. But it's incredibly unethical to engage in any kind of relationship where, your kind of lifestyle's on the line, in terms of your money and your friendships and your connections without having well outlined expectation of roles and behavior. And that applies from, if you're running a food truck and it's just your neighbor's kiddo who's coming along with you to, slap stuff on a grill, or if you're running, a shipping business and you're hiring people to drive trucks that lives are depending on. I think that the whole spectrum of possible employment relationships, they need well-defined outlines of what is expected in a role, what is expected in behavior, and what happens when you don't meet that. And you need it before you need it. Like, you got to have it before you wreck it. And otherwise, you're going to lose everything. You're going to get sued. You know, you're going to have a couple of bad Google reviews, and then you're going to lose your business. And rebuilding after all that is just heartbreaking and, yeah, unsafe.
Yeah. Yeah. So good. My head's going somewhere a little bit different, and then I'm gonna bring
Go.
this back around.
Do it. Go
So,
there.
as you were talking about, like, why we need policy at the beginning, I just kept thinking of how applicable that is to needing the Bible and, like, the word in our lives,
Yeah.
Like, it's our guiding framework. But I think
Policy.
to your point yes, exactly, but to your point of, like, why sometimes we can be hesitant, I think it can get distorted and become legalistic. And I think policy can be misinterpreted that way too. Like it's supposed to be guardrails. It is not live and die. You cannot move outside of these parameters, but it is a guiding principle for here's the integrity of how we steward this, how we live within these
Mhm.
guidelines to have clarity and kindness. Um, but I was thinking as you were saying that, like the Lord's really been working me over on, like, do you trust me? Like, do you really trust me enough to lay down like your control and really surrender your life
Mhm.
to my guidance? And I've honestly been wrestling with that question, but one of the things he reminded me of is his promise that he all throughout scripture before there is a trial or
Mhm.
some type of exile or destruction that comes into their lives, there's always a promise that comes before it, right? Like we quote Jeremiah 29:11 a lot.
Mhm.
And it's, for I know the plans I have for you to prosper you and for hope and a future. And like that's a great declaration.
Mhm.
But just before that, he tells them you're going to go into exile for 70 years. But take heart because here's the promise to come. And so as you're talking about that, I'm like, in kindness, the parameters of policy is the promise of, hey, if we can abide within this, there's safety to move through this. But otherwise, there is kind of this like potential trap of destruction if you choose to to move outside of those parameters.
Mm.
So there's safety in policy, and you keep using the word safety, and I'm like, that really is so true. Like there's just a safety within that, the guardrails to keep us aligned, and to live with integrity, live above board so that if destruction comes, we have something secure to hold on to, that we have walked in integrity to the best of our ability, and our character is hopefully not marred by that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think from a faith perspective, when we think about scripture, that we go to weekly trainings, right, on scripture. Um, we're encouraged to read it, to know it, to have it always on our minds, um, and to engage with other individuals who do the same and can hold us accountable to um, this the scripture that we follow. And I think if we're going to make a parallel process to that, um, that is what training is supposed to do in the world of policy. Is you don't just write it and have it and it's there and then you never touch it. It is supposed to be trained on quarterly, annually reviewed, checked regularly for correctness. Someone said you have to inspect what you expect. And I was like, oh, I'm stealing that. Yay. Thank you. Her name's Deirdre Padillo. She works out of San Antonio. So I'm going to quote her for a couple of times and then I'm going to take credit for it forever. Um, but you have to know it. You have to refer to it. You have to fall back on it. I my husband asks me regularly, or he'll be sharing work stories, and he's in leadership, and he'll share a story. Someone from his team has said something to him that he's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they got treated this way by a client or by a peer. And I'm like, what does your handbook say? Like, you got to go back to that, because if you are going to establish safety for your worker to be able to engage with that client again, or to maintain safety in your team, and there's an issue with this other employee, you need to know what your handbook says so that you can follow through, protect your client, protect your worker, and sir, please protect yourself. You're
Yeah.
working for us. Like that's our direct deposit. Please follow what your handbook says. And then you've done your due diligence and you can trust that the next step will do their due diligence as well. But if you don't have a handbook, if you don't have a role, if you can't access it, if you can't get to it, if you don't know where it's kept, um, what are you supposed to do? You can't make it safe again until you know what to do. And that's, that is part of what I offer as a social worker um in policy development. It's not just the development of the policy, it's not just babysitting policy to make sure that it stays effective and ethical, but also training and tracking training to make sure that it's a useful and valuable tool that's not just taking up space, is making the world a better place.
Yeah. Yeah. Honestly.
So yeah, that is I think that's a really valuable parallel to draw between as individuals, we we have these standards that we follow for faith, for health, for um this is the same concept applies
Yeah.
in business. And I think it's ethical to have, unethical to not have.
Yeah. Well, and to that end too, like I've worked in HR where it's like somebody wants to make a concession for one person, and then that goes around the company, and now there's an expectation, not a concession, right? And so it's like those policies are there for a reason, and knowing them, reinforcing them, like
Yeah.
keeping that true and equitable is crucial to the success of the entire operation, you know?
Yeah. 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 And once you break trust, y- it is, it is so hard to recover it, to rebuild it. You have to constantly be being investing in trust. This constant. Um, yeah, you can't take that for granted.
No, I agree. As you were talking about that too, I was thinking about there was a company that I worked for that I did communications, and there was a point where we were thinking we were going to have to step into kind of a firestorm of like media and legal battle. Like, and I'm like, great, I am going to be the face of this. That feels
Yeah,
real encouraging right now.
awesome.
Yeah.
Right, right.
And I like in this moment of crisis, there were like a bunch of things that like in an 8-day span, I had like been like working out in my workout studio and there was a shooting outside of the studio. So we walk out to like helicopters and like media everywhere, completely oblivious. Like all these random things happened in like the span
Oh,
of 8 days.
no.
And then my CEO approached me and he told me this. And I was like, oh man, like I better be ready for this, you know? And so I'm in crisis mode. So I like stayed up till 2 a.m. typing out this whole crisis communication plan. And it was so robust. I even got a compliment from an attorney on it. I was like, I feel real good about this. But
Good
anyway,
job.
I
Mhm.
digress. Thanks. Yeah.
Well done. Yep.
But I'm saying that to say, at the point that we were trying to roll this out in preparation for what we were stepping into, it was
Mhm.
too late, right? We were starting to recognize weaknesses in systems and security and all these different places of our operation. And to your point, training everybody, training our vendors on how to redirect things, training all of the external resources
That's
of
a lot.
if we step into this, we've got to be ready and
Yeah.
united. And we were not.
Mm.
And so to your point, like I think processes have to be procedures, policies, they have to be
Mhm.
proactive. You
Yeah.
can't step into that on the back end and expect it to,
Yeah.
stopgap. Like it can help. It can
Yeah.
stop some of the hemorrhaging, but it's not going to be the
Yeah.
united front that it can
Yeah.
be if it'll be proactive, right?
Mhm. Yeah, that's from the beginning. There needs to be this policy. You got to have it, right? Um, if you don't have it and you're already, 10 years in and you're like, oh man, you got to get it. But it doesn't have to be perfect from
Right.
the beginning, but you got to have it. Something is better than nothing. And you can build on it. You can build it out. We can get it better. Doesn't it, policy is not permanent. It is meant to develop and grow, especially since all of those expectations in a professional setting are so dependent on state and federal guidelines and requirements. And those change. I think we're seeing that them just like rapid fire. Things are changing so fast. It's like your head is spinning trying to keep up with it. And how do you like, where do you start? How do you step in? What do you, um, oh my goodness, it can be so overwhelming. And I have a lot of compassion for that. But if you haven't started from the beginning and you're just like, it's just you and your spouse and your neighbor's kid, or you're, 27 employees deep, or you're, 150, start now. Just let's do it. And let's just bite the bullet and get it sorted. It's better late than never.
Yeah.
Uh, and let's just get it sorted
Yeah.
because it is helpful and it is really hard to go through a crisis. And every business will. I think you were making that point earlier when you were drawing connections with the promises in Scripture about how um, you're going to go through some stuff, but I know the plans I have for you. You will go through some stuff. You will have employees that ruin your day.
Yeah.
It's just not going to be a good fit, and you're going to have to do something. You will have clients that you will have to draw a line in the sand with and say, I will not work with you anymore. It will happen. And the point isn't, um, will it happen or not? The point is have you, have you created a concerted response
Right.
for how you're going to tackle it? Um, and that is, it really is really easy to craft really simple outlines, even though it can feel so overwhelming. But that's why I do what I do. It's
Yeah.
safety. I
I
can
love
help.
it. So if people are moved by this and they're like, okay, yes, I'm understanding it's not legalistic, it's not that viewpoint. It's parameters, it's guidelines for my
Right.
safety, my team's safety, success. What would be the next step to kind of take to start to figure out what parameters do I even need in place? And what does this look like? And what are the guiding best practices? Like, what would be the next step for that?
Yeah. So this is where I think I would be really wise to say, give me a call. And let's talk about it. Um, because that's, that's why I'm doing what I'm doing, is to be able to be the person. Um, but that can feel really intimidating. A lot of people like to have more information before they make decisions. So uh, it- I'm going to hate myself for saying this, but it is free, which is usually my favorite four-letter F word, except in this situation. um, so, as a social worker, I can't gatekeep access to solutions. I just can't. So, you can Google employee handbooks and standard operating procedures and memorandums of understandings and sexual harassment policy. All of it is public record at the state and federal level. So you absolutely can take some time and download a free template and fill it in. And again, something is better than nothing. And that is valuable. There's nothing wrong with starting simple. Um, oh God, even Chat GPT will help you craft a really simple, basic, unbranded, industry non-specific. Listen to me.
I like see the pain on you as
What's
you're
wrong with
saying
me?
this. You're like, I don't want to tell you this. Please don't go that route. Please get it professionally vetted. I
Google
will
it.
say that.
Yes.
But
If
yes.
if you're already working with an attorney in your business, your employment attorney, your business attorney can help you craft, or should have already helped you craft policy. If you are working with business consultants, every business consultant I've had a conversation with so far provides this service, and take advantage of it. Of course, having someone who this is their whole job, having someone who this is my experience. I've written policy for governments. I've written policy for small business. I've written trainings for government employees. I've written trainings for healthcare workers. I train on policy and the origins of policy and the why of policy and how of policy and how to document it and how to use it. And that's what I do. It is my niche. I am a super nerd, if you haven't noticed, when it comes to this. So that is an added benefit. And if you are the consultant listening or interviewing me, um, if you are the attorney, put me in, coach. Like, these are tedious things that can be and feel overwhelming. It's not the fun part for a lot of people. Um, a lot of people want to be face to face with their recipients. They want to be, being dynamic and engaging. And I really don't want to be the center of attention. I really do want to research and write and monitor and train and organize policy. That is not free because I'm very good at it and I have a lot of experience and a lot of education, but it is valuable and worthwhile to have someone in your corner who makes this their whole job. So, yes, follow all of those. If you don't pick me, pick something.
Right.
If you don't do social safety solutions, do something because at the end of the day, you got to make it safe. Safety first. So,
Yes. Yeah.
yeah.
And to your point, I mean, yes, there are free resources. If that is
Mhm.
what, as a business owner, you can afford at this moment,
Yeah.
or,
Yeah.
just to start getting some of those safety parameters in place. But to your end, there are going to be specific nuances based off industry. compliance standards,
Yeah.
just general
Yep.
specifications to your business. If you're a faith-based owner, do you have a statement of faith within that to
Yeah.
protect yourself? There are certain things that are going to be specific that you need somebody who understands the
Yeah.
nuances, and
Mhm.
that's not gonna come in a free chat template or, what's available online. Like, that is the value
Correct.
of having the hired person. So I would say, yes, please hire somebody who can help you
Yeah.
because as somebody who's worked in different positions of leadership and HR,
Mhm.
there are some real tedious nuances in there that I've had to, I remember working in HR and, having to call our attorney and be like, "All right, I got this situation," and, the handbook kinda reads like gray, so do I go black or do I go white here?
Yeah.
Because there's just a little too much gray zone that if I don't step just right on this, I'm stepping on a grenade, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, knowing somebody who not only can write the policy in a specific way to your nuances, but who also understands the policy that you can call and say, all right, here's my gray zone. Help me not step the wrong direction and
Yeah.
blow up,
Yeah.
something really significant
Mhm.
here, have a lawsuit, whatever the case may be. So yeah, I would highly plug that. So
I agree. I
yes.
agree.
So transitioning just a little bit in the flow of conversation, I want to shift to one of my favorite questions that I love to ask everybody of what is a fear limiting belief or obstacle that you've had to overcome and what are some ways that you've learned to work through that?
Yeah. This is such a good question.
Are you gonna have vulnerability hangover?
Yeah. That I don't know enough.
Mm,
I said everything I just said, about pick me, pick me, pick me, put me in coach. And my number one fear is that I just don't know enough. So I think in more formal environments, we call it imposter syndrome. Um, uh, you know, I know my experience. I know my education. I know my training. I know where I've been. I know what I've done. And because I know all of that and I've seen what I've seen and I've been where I've been, I also know that I just don't know enough. And that's terrifying and immobilizing and has kept me, will keep me, still keeps me from, I think having branched out sooner, having started sooner, having trying sooner. It keeps me going back to the job boards and saying I should just get a 9 to 5 and just do this for some company out there and resent it and not actually do what I want to do. So I have to constantly put myself back in, you know, what I really want to do is be a social worker for social workers, to work in policy development, to be the person that um, helps. If I can help one leader, one server, one person um, overcome their barriers, then every person that person touches is safer and better than they could have been before. And then all of those people, that level of exponential growth from the perspective of serving and helping and meeting needs and overcoming barriers, um, that's that makes the world a better place. Achieves that's peacemaking. That's how we do the good work of doing good work. And I want to be in a place where I can help make things safer for people to live and to thrive. But I'm very much an information person. And there's so much information that I could never know enough of it. Yeah, it's really intimidating.
Yeah.
Um, so that's kind of like I have to. self-talk my way through that. And then, so this is, I'm going to keep going. Stop me if it gets too long. Um, but uh, about a year ago, well, in the last 3-ish years, I've had the opportunity to meet some of the most incredible people who I meet, specifically women, who have audacity. And audacity is not usually a word that we use as in a good way. But I think, it's, you got to have it
Yeah.
to try to do anything new. And these people that I have encountered have audacity in spades. And it's not even like they had an idea like, ooh, maybe I could. It was like they never even questioned if this was something they could accomplish. They just did it. They just woke up and were like, oh, I'm gonna do this. And then they did it. And they're doing it. And it's not because they have like degrees and education. All of these friends, they have their experience, they have their education, they have um their expertise, but at the end of the day, they just did it, and they're in every possible field, and they are normal everyday people
Yeah.
who are just doing it. I thought to myself, October 2024, I was like, I'm going to do this. I'm actually going to do this. And I think being surrounded by people with audacity
Yeah.
has, um, I've been able to take a little bite and have some myself. Um, and I struggle. I struggle with that constant, like, I don't know enough.
Yeah.
I need to do one more training. I need to do one more certificate. I need to read like 7 more of these books. I need to do this little education course. I need to go do this. And then I'll be ready. But that's a never ending
Yeah.
roller coaster. So you just gotta pull the plug. Just do it.
Yeah. I think the greatest obstacle more often than not is ourselves, right?
Yeah.
Like we have to get out of our own way. I had somebody tell me one time, the more you know, the more you learn, the more you realize how little you actually know. Like there's so much broader of a world outside of what we know. And so the more we think we hold all the answers, the worse off we are. It's really the broader the perspective, the more curious we are to learn, the better. But I I had somebody on the podcast a few weeks ago talked about, if you are not stepping on bigger stages, moving in bigger spaces, you're limiting yourself.
Yeah.
It's a choice to stay and play it small or to live emboldened. And I
Mm.
think I have had to come to this realization of like the difference between me and people like them, like, is
Yeah.
am I willing to get out of my own way
Yeah.
and, like, really step into this emboldened calling, trusting that God is before me, He has made a way, He's given me everything I need, I don't need more courses, I just need the courage to execute it,
Yeah.
and I know I'm not alone in that, like, I think imposter syndrome is probably one of the biggest trip ups for almost all of us in entrepreneurship, and
Yeah.
the first time I started talking about this was years ago. I did a Women's Business Alliance presentation, and it was
Hmm.
literally that. How do we live into being audacious women by overcoming this imposter syndrome? And, it is that
Yeah.
I wanna Google the definition of audacious while we're sitting here because 'cause I'm like,
Do it.
honestly,
Yeah.
yes, because it's so good because I think you're right, like, we tend to think of it as a negative thing, and it's really not. Um
Yeah.
it's showing a willingness to take surprisingly bold risk is one of the definitions.
Yeah.
Uh, see what else we've got. Someone who is extremely bold, daring, willing to take risks, often in a way that is both original and unconventional. This can sometimes be perceived negatively as being insolent or brazen, but is also frequently used as a compliment to describe a confident, fearless, or inventive spirit. That's from AI overview. I don't know.
Yeah.
I can't
Thank
just
you, AI.
yeah, I mean, there is
Yep.
something to, like,
Yeah.
being bold enough, like, I've said this many times, like, the difference is do I have the courage to step into the calling, or do I continue to shrink back and play it small and choose safety and comfort
Mhm.
in being invisible
Mhm.
versus taking the risk, living
Mhm.
boldly,
Yeah.
changing lives? To your point, like these
Yeah.
people give us courage to step
Mhm.
into these things because they're going first, they're modeling the way. And
Yeah.
it's like we can be braver than we think we can sometimes, you know? But I get tripped on that too.
I think too, um, I don't wanna look like a fool. I don't wanna I don't wanna look bad. I don't wanna be embarrassed. I don't wanna be, um, and so that can be, that's part of the imposter syndrome is I'm gonna look foolish doing this because I don't know enough.
Yeah.
So I think, um, being able to kinda set aside or step around that thought process regularly is, once I start this, I can't stop. Once I start this, I can't, I'll look stupid. Just, I don't know. I think maybe that comes with age too, is kind
I
of
don't know.
stop worrying about that as much
Yeah.
and just do it.
I think part of it is leaning into it too, right? Like, you're
Yeah.
not gonna be an expert until you've fumbled, you've made a few
Hmm.
failures, and you learn how to walk a different way through it, right? Like,
Yeah.
that's a story of life and learning to walk in general. Like, how many times do you watch a baby take
Yeah.
steps and then face plant, you know? And,
Yep.
like, they get back up,
Yeah.
keep trying it, and then they figure it out, and then it
Yep.
becomes secondhand knowledge. Like, it's so intuitive, they don't even think about it. And it's
Yeah.
like, we get tripped up over that, but it's like, we're gonna eat it a couple of times in the
Yep.
beginning.
It's
We
true.
just gotta do it and learn and go, "Okay, we'll
Yep.
make that mistake again."
Yep. Take notes.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
Write it down. So,
and hear me say, like, I am still in the fumbling we always will be, right? Like, even these, like,
yeah.
super high successful entrepreneurs that
Hmm.
we look at who have huge podcast followings on social, whatever the case may be,
Right.
right? They still trip up. We probably don't see their trip ups because they've got a team of people helping insulate that, but, it's
Again,
yeah,
yeah. So I think another uh I think we get lost also in like the permanency of things. Like, what if I do this and I hate it? What if I do this and I get bored? What if I open this business and I put all this effort into it and then like I don't want to do it anymore? I don't I just want to do it for a little while or and I think being able to be around people who kind of constantly reinvent themselves and, you know, do it anyway. Um, give it your best shot. And when you get tired of it, you can quit.
yeah,
You can do something else. It's
yeah,
okay. Um, and I think that's kind of the gift of being brave and having audacity is um, just do it anyway.
yeah.
So yeah.
So true. I had somebody, an entrepreneur who's in my leadership class, that was saying, like, if you're not pivoting every 3 years and not necessarily pivoting your entire business model, right? But like,
Right.
if you're not innovating, if you're not finding new ways to grow as a leader, as an entrepreneur, you're going to become stagnant. So
Yeah.
it's like there are limitless opportunities to grow, to adapt,
Yeah.
to evolve into who we're
Hmm.
becoming. And the way we become courageous enough to do that is just to keep taking the steps in front of us and figuring it out as we go. But yeah, we don't have to pigeonhole into, and I made that, I mean, I did that at the beginning too. And it was like, I am terrified to make the wrong decision or to message the wrong way because what if I hate what I build? And it's like, you're not doing anything in that case and you're just floundering. And I've been guilty of that. It's like you got to take the steps, execute, find the courage to do it. But
Yeah.
easier said than done sometimes.
I think I think that's a big fear when people think about policy and establishing written documents is it's going to pigeonhole us. It's going to keep us from um, growing and being creative and I know that we kind of talked about that already, but that's a really normal and natural human fear and response is I don't want to get trapped. I don't want to be stuck. But again, uh, policy can be written to be living, right? And to be adjustable and movable and scalable and updatable. Um, and just like just like our individual independent lives, um, we are organic and we can design our system to be organic as well.
I love that.
So,
Well, so
yeah.
if people are deciding, I need policy help, how do they
Mhm.
get in touch with you? What would their
Mhm.
next step be?
Yeah, so you can find me on Facebook and LinkedIn at So Safe Solutions or Social Safety Solutions. Um, I have a website, which I'm very proud of. Thank you very much. It's so-safe-solutions.com. And you can DM me through those. Um, you can find me that way. You you can fill out my contact form on my website. Yeah, come find me on LinkedIn and Facebook and at my website. And I really want to chat with you. So
Awesome. Yeah, you guys
work,
check the show notes below for all of that.
yeah, working with me, I run it like a social worker. So our first visit is a safety and needs assessment, right? Take 30 minutes to an hour of your time at most. And we have a conversation. I drive the bus because that's my job. And I'll ask the questions. I know what I need to know, so I know how to get the information. Um, and I've been doing this a long time, so I know how to get us down the road. And by the end of that assessment, um, I'll be able to share with you ideas, recommendations, and ways to address and solve those policy concerns. So, and if that looks like partnering with me, I'll tell you. Um, but if it looks like plugging into your existing resources instead, I'll tell you that too. So
Awesome.
that is, that's my commitment as a social worker. That's the oath I took. So I'll start there.
It's great to have a trusted partner. Well, thank you so much for sharing your
Yeah.
insights today and being a guest and teaching us a little bit more about how to create safety in our
Mhm.
businesses so that we can continue to thrive and have parameters and guidelines to succeed
Yeah.
a lot better.
Yeah. This has been fun. Thank you so much for inviting me and listening and giving me space to chatter. Appreciate it.